Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Defiance, watching the stars through the main screen. His ship was patrolling the edge of human space. Far from Earth, it was a quiet day until the communication officer turned around with a worried look. "Captain, we're getting a message on all frequencies. It's coming from everywhere at once." Jake walked over to the communication station, put it on screen. The main display changed to show a massive chamber filled with alien beings. At the center sat a tall creature with blue skin and 4 arms. Its voice was deep and cold when it spoke. "People of Earth, I am High Chancellor Vex of the Galactic Council. We represent 13 species that rule this galaxy. You humans have spread too far and too fast. Your aggressive nature threatens the peace we have built." Jake felt his stomach drop. This was not good news. The alien continued. "We offer you one chance for mercy. You have 30 standard days to surrender your independence. Disarm your fleets. Close your military bases. Accept our rule, and your people will live as our vassals." The image changed to show 3 human colonies. Jake recognized them immediately: New Texas, Haven Point, and Riverside. Each had millions of people living there. "If you refuse our generous offer, you will share the fate of these worlds." The screen showed the colonies going dark. No explosions, no fire, just empty space where thriving worlds used to be. Millions of people gone in seconds. "You have 30 days to decide. Choose wisely." The message ended, leaving the bridge in complete silence. Jake stared at the empty space where the colonies had been. His hands shook as he gripped the captain's chair. "Communications, get me Admiral Carter on Earth immediately," Jake ordered. On Earth, Admiral Lisa Carter was in her office when the emergency alert came through. She had already seen the message. Every human in space had received it at the same time. Her aide rushed in with reports flooding in from across human territory. "Admiral, we've lost contact with 3 colonies. Long-range sensors show nothing where they used to be." Lisa stood up and walked to the window. Outside, she could see people in the streets looking up at the sky. News of the ultimatum was spreading fast. Some people were crying. Others looked angry. "Call an emergency meeting of the Defense Council. Get every admiral and general here within the hour." The meeting room filled quickly. Military leaders from every branch of Earth's forces gathered around the large table. The mood was grim. Everyone had seen what happened to the colonies. General Paul Mitchell was the first to speak. "They wiped out 9 million people without warning. This isn't a negotiation. It's a threat." "What do we know about this Galactic Council?" asked Admiral Carter. Intelligence Chief Commander Ben Taylor stood up. "We've been tracking their communications for months. 13 species, all highly advanced. They've been watching us since we started expanding beyond our solar system. According to our data, they've done this before to dozens of other species." "What happened to those species?" someone asked. "They all surrendered within days. Most are now extinct or live as slaves on reservation worlds." The room fell silent. Lisa looked around the table at faces full of fear and anger. "Do we have any chance against them?" she asked. "In a straight fight?" "No," admitted General Mitchell. "They have technology we can't match. Their fleets are huge. But ... But what? They've never fought a species like us. Every other race they conquered was peaceful. They gave up when faced with superior force. We're different." Lisa nodded slowly. "You're suggesting we fight?" "I'm suggesting we make them regret ever hearing the word human." Captain Morrison's voice came through the communication system from his ship. "Admiral, I've been listening to their radio chatter. They're not even mobilizing their full fleets. They think this will be easy." "How long before they expect an answer?" Lisa asked. "Based on their previous conquests, most species surrender Within a week. They're probably expecting our response any day now. Lisa stood up and looked at each person in the room. These were Earth's best military minds. They had fought in the colony wars and the Mars Rebellion. They knew war better than any species in the galaxy. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a choice. We can surrender and hope they treat us well. Or we can show them why humans have never been conquered. What are you proposing? Asked General Mitchell. Total mobilization. Every ship, every soldier, every weapon we have. If they want a war, we'll give them one they'll never forget. The room erupted in discussion. Some argued for trying to negotiate. Others wanted to surrender to save lives. But slowly, one by one, they began to agree. They were military officers. Fighting impossible odds was what they did. All in favor of resistance? Lisa asked. Every hand went up. Then it's decided, we fight. As the meeting ended, Lisa stayed behind to look at the star map on the wall. 13. Species against 1. Billions of aliens against millions of humans. Any reasonable person would call it suicide. But humans had never been reasonable when their backs were against the wall. Ben, start preparing Operation Steel Storm. Paul, begin. Mobilizing all ground forces. Jake, I want every ship we have ready for combat. Yes, ma'am, came the replies. Lisa walked to her window again. In 30 days, the Galactic Council would return for their answer. They expected surrender or token resistance. They were about to learn why humans were different from every other species in the galaxy. The countdown to war had begun. Admiral Lisa Carter stood in the war room as reports came in from across human space. In just 2 weeks since the Council's ultimatum, humanity had transformed completely. What the aliens saw as a death sentence, humans saw as a call to arms. Admiral, the civilian shipyards have finished converting the first batch of cargo ships, reported Commander Ben Taylor. We now have 300 additional warships. Lisa nodded. Across human territory, every available ship was being turned into a weapon of war. Cargo haulers got armor plating and missile launchers. Passenger liners became troop transports. Even small mining ships were fitted with explosives to serve as suicide vessels. What about the colonies? Every settlement is now a fortress. The colonists are digging in deep. They've seen what happened to New Texas, Haven Point, and Riverside. Nobody wants to surrender. On the other side of the galaxy, High Chancellor Vex was getting very different reports. His intelligence officers looked confused as they delivered their findings. Chancellor, the humans are not behaving as expected, said his chief advisor. A tall alien with gray skin and large black eyes. Instead of preparing for surrender, they appear to be mobilizing for war. Vex laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Impossible. They have seen our power. No species has ever chosen to fight. After our demonstration, sir, our spies report that humans are converting civilian vessels into warships. They are also fortifying every colony and mining station. They are simply afraid. When the deadline approaches, they will surrender like all the others. But Vex was wrong. In the outer colonies, Lieutenant Colonel Amy Rodriguez was teaching civilians how to fight. These were farmers, miners, and shopkeepers who had never held weapons before. Now they were learning to use military equipment. Remember, the council species have rules about fighting, Amy told a group of colonists. They expect clean battles with clear winners and losers. We don't fight that way. An old farmer raised his hand. What do you mean? When they come, they'll expect us to line up our forces and fight fair. Instead, we'll hide in the buildings and attack when they don't expect it. We'll make every street a battlefield. We'll make them pay for every step they take. The farmer grinned. You mean we're going to cheat? We're going to survive. Back on Earth, General Paul Mitchell was reviewing the new battle plans. Unlike traditional military doctrine, these plans assumed total warfare from the beginning. Every human would fight. Every building could be a weapon. Every colony would resist until the last person standing. "Sir, the Council has sent another message." An aide reported. Paul walked to the communication room where the message was playing. High Chancellor Vex appeared on screen again, but this time he looked annoyed. "Humans of Earth, we have been monitoring your activities. You appear to be preparing for conflict rather than surrender. This is unwise. We urge you to reconsider before it is too late." The message ended, and Paul smiled. The aliens were nervous. Good. Captain Jake Morrison was leading a patrol near the border when his sensors picked up an alien scout ship. It was just sitting there, watching. Jake ordered his ship to approach. "This is Captain Morrison of the United Earth ship Defiance. You are in human space without permission." The alien response came back in perfect English. "We are observers from the Galactic Council. We do not wish conflict. Then leave. We are simply monitoring the situation." Jake looked at his weapons officer. "Fire a warning shot across their bow." The laser blast lit up space in front of the alien ship. The scout vessel immediately turned and fled at top speed. "Sir, should we pursue?" asked his weapons officer. "No. Let them run back and tell their friends what they saw." When the scout ship returned to the Council fleet, its captain was shaking. "Admiral, the humans fired on us without provocation. They showed no fear." The Council Admiral, a creature with tentacles instead of arms, looked puzzled. "Fired on you?" "But we clearly identified ourselves as observers." "Yes, sir." They did not care. This was not how conquered species were supposed to behave. Conquered species begged for mercy. They tried to negotiate. They certainly did not fire on Council ships. On Earth, Admiral Carter was putting the finishing touches on Operation Steel Storm. The plan was simple in concept, but brutal in execution. When the Council came, they would find humans everywhere and nowhere. Every battle would cost the aliens more than they expected to pay. Then, what's the latest on their fleet movements? Commander Taylor checked his reports. They're not mobilizing anything significant. Maybe 100 ships total. They still think this will be easy. How many ships do we have now? Counting the converted civilian vessels, about 800. Most are not heavily armed, but they'll serve their purpose. Lisa walked to the window and looked up at the stars. In 2 weeks, the Council would return for humanity's answer. They expected surrender or token resistance followed by quick conquest. Instead, they would find something the galaxy had never seen before. A species that preferred death to slavery. A people who turned war into an art form. "Send a message to all human forces," Lisa ordered. "Tell them the Council wants our surrender. Tell them we choose war." Across human space, the message spread. On mining stations and farming colonies, in shipyards and military bases, humans received their orders. Fight, never surrender. Make the enemy pay for every victory. On the frontier world of New Montana, colonist Mark Thompson read the message to his family. His wife Sarah looked worried, but their teenage son, Alex, seemed excited. "Dad, are we really going to fight aliens?" Mark looked at his son. "Yes, Alex, we're going to show them that humans don't bow to anyone. What if we lose?" "Then we lose. Fighting. That's better than living on our knees." The countdown continued. 14 days until the Council returned. 14 days to prepare for a war, unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. In the depths of space, the Council's advanced scouts were reporting strange readings from human space. Ships moving in unusual patterns. Colonies that looked more like fortresses. A species that seemed to be preparing for total war rather than reasonable surrender. High Chancellor Vex dismissed these reports. No species had ever chosen extinction over subjugation. The humans would surrender when faced with the Council's might. He had no idea what humanity was about to unleash upon the galaxy. The 30 days were up. High Chancellor Vex sat in his command ship as the Council fleet approached human space. Behind him followed 200 of the galaxy's most advanced warships, representing the combined might of 13 species. Send the final message to Earth. Vex ordered. The transmission went out across all human frequencies. This is your last chance. Surrender now or face destruction. The response came back within minutes. It was Admiral Lisa Carter herself, speaking from Earth. This is Admiral Carter of Earth Defense Command. We have considered your offer carefully. Our answer is no. If you want human worlds, come and take them. Vex stared at the screen in disbelief. No species had ever rejected the final ultimatum. Ever. Very well. You have chosen extinction. The first battle happened at Proxima Junction, where Captain Jake Morrison waited with 50 human ships. The Council sent twice that number, expecting easy victory. What they found instead was something they had never encountered before. The human ships didn't line up for traditional battle. Instead, they came from all directions at once, moving in patterns that made no sense to the Council commanders. Small groups of human vessels attacked single alien ships with everything they had. What are they doing? Asked the Council Admiral, in charge of the attack. This is not proper fleet warfare. His question was answered when the first human ship, badly damaged and losing power, turned straight toward his flagship. The human captain spoke over open channels. For New Texas. For Haven Point. For Riverside. The ship exploded against the Council vessel's shields, taking them down completely. Immediately, 10 more human ships focused their fire on the now defenseless flagship. It died in seconds. Admiral, called the communications officer. The human ships are not retreating when damaged. They're ramming us instead. Captain Morrison watched from his bridge as his plan unfolded. They couldn't match the aliens ship for ship, but they could make every human vessel count for 2 or 3 enemy ships. It was brutal mathematics, but it was working. All ships execute pattern Omega. Make them pay for every kill. The pattern Omega was pure human thinking. Instead of trying to save ships, they used them as weapons. Damaged vessels rammed enemy ships. Intact ships protected the ramming vessels until they could reach their targets. It was insane by galactic standards, but it was effective. When the battle ended 6 hours later, the Council had won. But they had lost over half their ships to destroy the human force. Worse, they had never seen tactics like this before. The Council Admiral sent his report back to High Chancellor Vex. Sir, we have secured Proxima Junction, but at great cost. The humans fight like nothing we have ever encountered. They use their own ships as weapons. Vex read the report 3 times. Explain. They ram us, sir. When their ships are damaged, instead of surrendering or retreating, they point them at our vessels and ram us at full speed. That is suicide. Yes, sir. That appears to be their preferred tactic. On the colony world of New Montana, General Paul Mitchell was watching the news from Proxima Junction. The humans had lost, but the cost they inflicted on the enemy was enormous. Now it was his turn to show the galaxy what human ground forces could do. The Council landing ships approached New Montana, expecting to find a surrendering population. Instead, they found empty cities and silent farms. When they landed, the colonists were nowhere to be seen. Where is everyone? Asked the Zephyrian ground commander as his troops spread out through the main town. The answer came in the form of explosions. The humans had turned every building into a trap. As the alien soldiers moved through the streets, mines exploded beneath them. Snipers fired from hidden positions. Entire city blocks collapsed as the colonists triggered demolition charges. "This is not how civilized species conduct ground warfare," the commander radioed to his fleet. "They are fighting from hiding. They attack and disappear." What the aliens didn't understand was that humans had been fighting this way for thousands of years. Every colonist knew how to set traps, how to hide, how to attack enemies from unexpected directions. They had learned these skills from their ancestors, who fought for survival on Earth. Mark Thompson and his son Alex were hiding in the ruins of their farm when the alien patrol passed by. Mark waited until they were directly over the buried explosives before triggering the detonator. The blast killed 6 aliens instantly. "Dad, they're sending more troops," Alex whispered, pointing to the sky where landing ships were descending. "Good. More targets." The battle for New Montana lasted 3 days. When it ended, the Council controlled the major cities, but they had lost over 10,000 soldiers to a population of farmers and miners. Worse, the humans had destroyed everything useful before retreating to the mountains. Similar scenes played out across human space. Every colony became a fortress. Every civilian became a soldier. The Council forces won battle after battle, but each victory cost them more than they could afford. High Chancellor Vex received reports from dozens of worlds. The pattern was always the same. Humans fought with a ferocity that terrified his soldiers. They used tactics that violated every rule of civilized warfare. They preferred death to surrender. "Sir," his chief advisor said nervously, "perhaps we should reconsider our approach. The humans are not behaving rationally." "Nonsense. They are simply desperate. Once they see the futility of resistance, they will surrender." But the humans showed no signs of surrendering. On the mining world of Rockport, Colonel Kate Parker led a defense that lasted 2 weeks. Her forces, mostly civilian volunteers, held off a Council army 10 times their size by turning the mines into a maze of death traps. The aliens would advance into a tunnel system, only to find it filled with explosive gas. They would capture a mining station, only to discover it had been rigged to collapse. Every step forward cost them soldiers, equipment, and time. "Colonel," radioed one of her subordinates, "we're down to our last ammunition. Then we use the mining charges. If they want this rock, they can have it in pieces." When Rockport finally fell, there was nothing left but rubble. The humans had destroyed the entire mining operation rather than let it fall into alien hands. 3,000 human defenders had tied up 30,000 Council troops for 2 weeks, then denied them the prize they came to claim. Across the galaxy, other species were watching the war with growing amazement. The humans were losing every battle, but they were fighting like demons. More importantly, they were making the Council pay a price no conquered species had ever demanded. The aquatic depths dwellers were the first to express concern. "High Chancellor, our losses are approaching 20% of our total forces. Perhaps we should negotiate with the humans." Vex's response was immediate. "There will be no negotiation with primitives. We will crush them completely." But privately, Vex was beginning to worry. The humans were supposed to be conquered within days. Instead, they had been fighting for over a month. Every world the Council captured was left in ruins. Every victory came at a cost that made the next battle harder to win. On Earth, Admiral Carter was reviewing the battle reports. Humanity was losing, but they were doing exactly what she had hoped. They were showing the galaxy that humans could not be conquered easily. "Ben, what's our fleet status?" "We've lost about 60% of our ships, but we've destroyed almost 40% of theirs." "The exchange rate is better than we hoped," Lisa nodded. The plan was working. Soon, the Council would learn that conquering humanity was possible. But keeping them conquered was something else entirely. The real war was just beginning. High Chancellor Vex stood before the emergency session of the Galactic Council. Behind him, holographic displays showed the current state of the war against humanity. The numbers were not what anyone had expected. Honored members, Vex began. His voice strained. The human conflict has entered its third month. While we continue to advance, the cost has been significant. Ambassador Keth of the crystalline Shatterkin species raised one of his sharp appendages. Define significant, Chancellor. We have lost 45% of our total fleet strength. Ground casualties exceed 100,000. The humans have destroyed every facility we have captured. A wave of shocked sounds rippled through the council chamber. These were losses greater than the last 10 conquests combined. Ambassador Yull of the Depths Dwellers spoke next, her voice bubbling through her water-filled communication device. What makes these humans so different from other species we have conquered? Vex hesitated. How could he explain what his commanders had reported? How could he tell the council that humans seem to prefer death to surrender? They fight differently. He said finally, they do not follow the accepted rules of warfare. On Earth, Admiral Lisa Carter was launching the next phase of humanity's war plan. Operation Prometheus had begun, and its target was not just Council military forces, but everything the aliens valued. Major Chris Bennett, you have authorization for deep strike missions against Council supply lines, Lisa announced to the Special Operations Commander. Bennett nodded grimly. His teams had been training for months to operate behind enemy lines. Now they would show the Council what human creativity could accomplish when applied to warfare. Admiral, what are our rules of engagement? Bennett asked. There are no rules. The Council showed us what they do to human colonies. Now we show them what we do to theirs. The first target was a Council supply depot on the edge of Zephyrian space. Major Bennett's team approached in a captured alien transport, broadcasting friendly identification codes. When they reached the station, they revealed their true nature. The attack lasted only 10 minutes. When it was over, the supply depot was gone, along with enough food and equipment to supply a Council fleet for 6 months. But the real message was in what the humans left behind. Every alien survivor had the words, "Remember New Texas," carved into their memory implants. Similar attacks began happening across Council space. Human strike teams, led by officers like Captain Nina Walsh, hit communication centers, research facilities, and even civilian targets. The message was always the same. If the Council wanted to play with extinction, humans would show them what it really meant. Sir, reported the Zephyrian Admiral to High Chancellor Vex, the humans have poisoned 3 of our agricultural worlds. The toxins they used are specifically designed to kill our food crops. It will take years to clean up the contamination. Vex stared at the report. They poisoned entire worlds? Yes, sir. They also left a message. For every human colony you destroyed, we will take 10 of yours. This was beyond anything the Council had experienced. Conquered species begged for mercy. They negotiated. They tried to minimize damage to both sides. They did not systematically destroy their conqueror's ability to wage war. The Depths Dwellers were the first to crack. Ambassador Yull requested an emergency meeting with her species' high command. We cannot continue this war, she told them. The humans have poisoned 17 of our water worlds. They have developed weapons specifically designed to kill our species. They study our weaknesses and exploit them without mercy. The Depths Dweller High Command agreed. Within days, they withdrew their fleets from the war and began seeking a separate peace with humanity. The crystalline Shatterkin were next. Captain Walsh's team had developed sonic weapons that could literally shatter their crystalline bodies. After losing an entire colony to these weapons, the Shatterkin also began withdrawing from the conflict. High Chancellor Vex watched his alliance crumble. As species after species abandoned the war, the humans had done something no conquered race had ever accomplished. They had turned the Council's strength into weakness. Chancellor, his aide reported, we have received another communication from the humans. Admiral Carter appeared on the screen. She looked tired but determined. High Chancellor Vex, I am offering you one chance to end this war. Withdraw all Council forces from human space, return the populations you took from our colonies, and never threaten humanity again. In return, we will stop our attacks on Council worlds. Vex was furious. You dare offer terms to the Galactic Council? You are a conquered species. Carter smiled coldly. Are we? Look around you, Chancellor. How many of your allies are still fighting? How many of your worlds are still safe? We are not conquered. We are just getting started. The transmission ended, leaving Vex staring at a blank screen. His aide approached carefully. Sir, what are your orders? Before Vex could answer, another report arrived. Commander Ryan Foster, leading a human fleet, had attacked the Council's primary shipyard. The facility that had built warships for over 1,000 years was now a cloud of expanding debris. Sir, the communications officer called out, we're receiving surrender requests from 4 more member species. Vex looked at the tactical display showing the current state of the war. Red markers showed human attacks across Council space. Yellow markers showed Council worlds requesting protection. Green markers showed friendly forces, and there were fewer of those each day. How many humans are left? He asked. His aide checked the reports. Intelligence estimates suggest they have lost 60% of their original population, sir. And they are still fighting? Sir, they appear to be fighting harder. Our psychologists believe that losses only make them more determined. This was incomprehensible to Vex. Every species the Council had conquered eventually reached a breaking point where continued resistance became impossible. The humans seemed to have no breaking point at all. On the human colony of New Hope, last major population center still in human hands, Colonel Kate Parker was preparing for what everyone knew would be the final battle. The Council was gathering its remaining forces for one last push to end human resistance. Colonel, her aide reported, we have confirmation. They're bringing everything they have left. Over 300 ships and 500,000 ground troops. Kate looked out at the city where 3 million humans were preparing to make their last stand. Men, women, and children were all ready to fight. Not because they thought they could win, but because surrender was not in their nature. Send a message to Earth, Kate ordered. Tell Admiral Carter that New Hope will hold as long as humans draw breath. The message reached Earth just as Admiral Carter was reviewing the latest intelligence reports. The Council was making one final push, but they were doing it with a broken alliance and demoralized forces. Many of their member species had already withdrawn from the war. Admiral, Commander Taylor reported, we're detecting massive fleet movements toward New Hope. It looks like they're committing everything they have left. Lisa nodded. The Council was about to learn the final lesson about fighting humans. Even when faced with certain defeat, humans would make their enemies pay the highest possible price for victory. Send word to all remaining human forces, she ordered. New Hope is where we make our stand. Every ship, every soldier, every weapon we have left. If the Council wants to end this war, they'll have to go through all of us. The stage was set for the final battle. The Council's remaining forces against humanity's last defenders. But even as the aliens prepared for what they thought would be an easy victory, they had no idea that humans had one more surprise waiting for them. The war was about to reach its climax, and the galaxy would never be the same. The final battle for New Hope lasted 7 days. When it was over, High Chancellor Vex stood in the ruins of what had once been humanity's last major colony. His forces had won, but the victory felt like defeat. Sir, his aide reported quietly, final casualty reports are in. We lost 80% of our remaining fleet and over 400,000 ground troops. Vex looked around at the devastated city. Every building had been a fortress. Every street had been a battlefield. The humans had fought for each block, as if it were their homeworld. Even the children had fought, carrying weapons and explosives until the very end. "How many human survivors?" he asked. "Less than 50,000 across all their territory, sir. But ... But what?" The aide looked nervous. "Sir, they're still fighting. The survivors have broken into small groups and begun guerrilla operations across council space. Our supply lines are under constant attack." That was when Vex realized the horrible truth. Conquering humanity was not the same as defeating them. Even with their worlds destroyed and their people scattered, humans would never stop fighting. The first peace offer came from the Depths Dwellers. Ambassador Yal's species had suffered too much damage to continue the war. They formally requested a separate peace treaty with the human survivors. Admiral Lisa Carter, broadcasting from a hidden base somewhere in space, accepted their surrender on behalf of humanity. "The Depths Dwellers will withdraw from all human territory immediately," she announced. "They will provide compensation for the damage they caused to human colonies. In return, human forces will cease attacks on Depths Dweller worlds." Vex watched in shock as his former ally signed a peace treaty with the species they had supposedly conquered. But it was only the beginning. Within weeks, 8 more council species had signed separate peace agreements with humanity. Each treaty was more humiliating than the last. The conquered were dictating terms to their conquerors. "Chancellor," his remaining aide reported, "the Shatterkin have just agreed to provide humans with ships and supplies. They claim it is part of their peace settlement." Vex could not believe what he was hearing. "They are giving ships to humans?" "Yes, sir. Sir." The humans demanded it as compensation for the Shatterkin attacks on their colonies. The galaxy had turned upside down. The species that were supposed to be extinct were growing stronger while the council fell apart. Worse, other species that had never been involved in the war were beginning to ally themselves with humanity. Captain Jake Morrison. Now Admiral Morrison, after the deaths of so many senior officers, was negotiating with the independent worlds near human space. His message was simple: ally with humanity or face the council alone. "We cannot offer you protection," he told the ambassador from the neutral Vax Federation, "but we can promise that any species that helps the council will face the same treatment." The council received from us. The Vax ambassador looked at the reports of what humans had done to their enemies. Poisoned worlds, destroyed fleets, endless guerrilla warfare. The choice was easy. The Vax Federation formally recognizes human sovereignty and offers alliance against the Galactic Council. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy. Species that had remained neutral during the Council's reign of expansion suddenly found themselves drawn to the human cause, not because they loved humans, but because they feared them. Colonel Kate Parker, one of the few senior officers to survive the war, was put in charge of establishing humanity's new doctrine. The message she delivered to the galaxy was clear and terrifying. "Humanity chooses peace," she announced from the rebuilt capital of New Earth. "But we define peace as the absence of threats to human worlds and human people. Any species that threatens us will discover what humans are capable of when we choose war instead of mercy." The words sent chills across the galaxy. Every species leader understood the implication. Humans had shown mercy by accepting surrenders and negotiating peace treaties. If that mercy was withdrawn, the consequences would be unthinkable. "High Chancellor," Vex made one last attempt to restore council authority. He gathered the remaining loyal species and prepared for a final campaign against the human remnants. The war lasted exactly 3 days. Human forces, now equipped with ships provided by their new allies and armed with weapons developed during the long conflict, struck simultaneously at every council world. They did not try to conquer or occupy. They simply destroyed everything of military value and left. When it was over, the Galactic Council existed only as a name. Its fleets were gone. Its infrastructure was ruined. Its member species had either made peace with humanity or withdrawn from galactic politics entirely. Vex himself was captured by Major Chris Bennett's team during the raid on the Council's last stronghold. He was brought before Admiral Carter for the final surrender ceremony. "You have won," Vex said bitterly, "but what you have built will not last. Other species will rise to challenge you." Admiral Carter looked at the defeated alien leader. "You still don't understand, do you? We didn't want to rule the galaxy. We just wanted to be left alone. But you couldn't allow that." "What do you mean?" "Every species in the galaxy has seen what we did to you. They know that humans prefer peace, but when forced to fight, we do not stop until our enemies are completely destroyed. Do you think anyone will be stupid enough to threaten us again?" Vex looked around the room at the human officers. They were tired, scarred by years of war, but their eyes held no mercy for those who had started the conflict. "What happens to me?" "You live. You live." Carter replied, "You go back to what remains of your people, and you tell them exactly what happened here. You make sure they understand that humans offered you peace first, and you chose war instead." Years passed. The galaxy settled into a new pattern. Humans rebuilt their colonies and expanded their territory, but they did so carefully. They made treaties with neighboring species. They offered trade agreements and mutual defense pacts. They chose diplomacy first, but everyone remembered what happened to the Galactic Council. Admiral Morrison, now in command of humanity's expanded fleet, received regular reports from across the galaxy. Species that had once dominated others through force now lived quietly behind their borders. Trade flourished between worlds that had never dared to interact during the Council's reign. The Zephyrians, once the Council's military backbone, now operated a small defense fleet that never ventured beyond their home system. Their new government sent regular tribute payments to human colonies, calling them friendship offerings. Everyone understood what they really were: the crystalline. Shatterkin had become humanity's most eager trading partners. They provided rare minerals in exchange for protection from other species. Their ambassador to humanity changed every few months because none of them could sleep properly after seeing what human weapons could do to their kind. Even the proud Vax Federation, despite being human allies, treated every human diplomat with careful respect. They had heard the stories. They knew what happened to species that made humans angry. "Sir," reported Commander Taylor, now head of human intelligence, "we've detected unusual fleet movements in the Outer Rim. The Korthak Empire appears to be building up their military." Admiral Morrison leaned back in his chair. The Korthak were a warrior species that had avoided the original Council War by staying in distant space. Apparently, they thought enough time had passed to test humanity's resolve. "Send them a message," Morrison ordered. "Invite their leadership to visit New Earth. Let them see our memorial to the Council War." The memorial was simple but effective. It listed every human colony destroyed by the Council, every life lost, and every enemy ship destroyed in return. At the bottom was a single line: "They chose war instead of mercy. Choose wisely." Most species who visited the memorial left with a new understanding of human capabilities. The Korthak delegation was no different. After seeing the detailed records of how humans had systematically destroyed the Council's ability to wage war, they quickly signed a non-aggression pact. On the former Council world of Zephyr Prime, the survivors still told stories about the war. Children grew up hearing about the species that turned ships into weapons, that poisoned entire worlds rather than let enemies hold them, that fought until every last warrior was dead. But they also heard about human mercy, about the peace, treaties offered to any species willing to stop fighting, about the reconstruction aid humans provided to former enemies who genuinely sought peace. The humans could have destroyed us all, the Zephyrian storytellers would say. They had the power. They had the reason. But they chose to let us live, as long as we never threatened them again. In the deep reaches of space, where the galaxy's oldest and most powerful species made their homes, ancient beings that had watched civilizations rise and fall for millions of years spoke of the humans with something approaching respect. "Our young," said the entity known only as the Watcher. "But they understand something that older species have forgotten. Peace is not the absence of conflict. Peace is the presence of consequences for those who break it." Captain Nina Walsh, now commanding the human exploration fleet, was mapping new regions of space when her ship encountered an unknown vessel. The aliens aboard called themselves the Eternals and claimed to be older than recorded history. "Young humans," their spokesperson said, "we have observed Yo."